Okay.
Oh, look at that. Usually it wants you to confirm that you're okay with, oh, there it is. There it is. I knew it was going to do that. It's like it can't just record without it, without that. So this is great. This is really great. We will get started here right at 3:00 because these are the folks who are here. Um, if you are listening afterwards, welcome. We are talking about employment today, employment and people with developmental disabilities in the state of Maine. And what I hope we do is we'll talk, I will talk about some of the topics that our funders are interested in us paying attention to. Most of them are pretty quick and easy. And we will, and Sean will share with us what vocational rehab is up to in terms of employment. And John will most likely just keep us on track. And we'll identify things we've missed. So without further ado, if that's okay, I'll just say that, that employment in Maine is an ongoing challenge across the board. Right now, unemployment is relatively low. Wages are also low. The personal income in Maine has consistently been in the bottom third of state rankings. So Maine is a relatively poor state. Uh, Unemployment is higher in rural counties and, typically as much as like 50% higher than it is in more urban areas. There is lots of data about employment and unemployment of people with disabilities, and even some about people with developmental disabilities. But I don't know, Sean, if you have like a different picture. I think it's difficult to get really specific information because every data source like measures things a little bit differently. So if you want to know how many people get employment supports, you can probably get that. That will tell you how many people have a job that they're getting supports for, and they have waiver services. The VR has great data, but it's not specific to developmental disability. There's sections where you say these are where most people with DD are, but it's not super comprehensive. The new the CAFIS, the Home and Community-Based Services data that the state has undertaken, that ODES has undertaken in the last couple of years, um, asks questions about employment, but the data is based on self-report, which is notoriously inaccurate. Um, so but we consistently, the message consistently throughout is that people with developmental disabilities participate in the labor force at much lower levels than their peers. Maybe half the overall rate, and that's just people who have a job, never mind like how many hours do they work. They have much higher rates of unemployment and underemployment, and the gaps have been pretty consistent through the years with there was an uptick around 2023, but that may have been just measurement. Who knows? I don't want to say who knows, somebody knows, but as far as the DD Council is concerned, we're just interested in trends. We are not we're not interested in arguing about the details of of why the rate is a little bit higher, in this one place. Because the state population is very small and the population of, the number of people with developmental disabilities is even smaller, and the state is pretty homogeneous, it is like pretty hard to pull out the differences in outcomes for employment of people with developmental disabilities. My gosh, that's a lot of words in a sentence. Um, but who are not part of a non-dominant population. So people who maybe who look who you know whose who have a different racial or ethnic or of background. But there's no reason to think, I mean, other states' DD councils have enough data to look at that, and there isn't any real reason to believe that it's, that disparities, so that, that having it so that the disparities don't increase with some of those other factors. And we the DD Council directly has received feedback that that not speaking English as your first language is results in increased challenges in getting employed. And this one has come up every time we've done this. This is maybe, what is this, like the third time you and I have done this whole thing from the beginning, right, Nancy? We've heard this every time, some concerns that particularly in rural counties, and that's just what the input has been. I don't know, that there may be a disincentive for the employment of people with developmental disabilities who receive services, that either individuals or their families are worried about benefits. In some cases, people are worried about their housing, which really can be impacted by wages, or other concerns. I mean, there's all kinds of other concerns about transportation and about expectations, but that particular one where there isn't like a disincentive for people to be employed because they are they're essentially providing jobs for people. Like, so that's a thing. The state of Maine passed Employment First legislation in 2013, so it's been a long time, 12 years, and worked collectively for about 4 or 5 years, looking at professional credentialing. So basically educating people about supporting people to get and keep jobs, to develop different types of customized employment, and really to look at gaps in transition, like during the transition age, from high school to adulthood, that's a place where people really fall off the map. One thing that I know has happened since then is that there has been a definite improvement since in the last 5 years of people having access to vocational rehab while they're still in high school, and that's pretty cool. What else has happened? In 2018, we got a new governor and leadership changed, and the focus on employment first kind of diminished. Although things were not undone, it just didn't continue on its way. Maine discontinued funding for sheltered workshops in 2008. So this is a long time, 17 years. And sub-minimum wage certificates were used for the next decade or so, finally zeroing out around 2020. 2019, rather, that is actually the year. And then there's John was a key person in the passage of legislation that formally eliminated the use of those sub-minimum wage certificates. So, and John, I know you worked hard for over a long period of time to have that happen. So it was really a great success.
Mm-hmm.
What else has happened that I'm going to talk about, because we're going to leave another thing that has happened that I think has impacted or that's relevant to employment is the Maine's ABLE program, Achieving a Better Life Experience program, that allows people to save money, like outside of, without losing access to they're Medicaid benefits. And you can save the money that you earn as an employee. So that is a thing that has a lot of potential to increase the benefits of working for people. But there are no data about that. That would be a hard thing to really get data about. But it's something to keep an eye on, and it may be something that we're likely to hear stories about. And let's see. Other things that are relevant, just so that once I stop talking, I won't start talking again. Like, unless it's a comment, I won't be like trying to like tell y'all anything else. Things that are like positive stuff in Maine. Anybody who receives waiver services is eligible for unlimited long-term employment support. That is really great. There's some question as to whether those supports are funded at a level of whether the rates are enough to like make it like a really viable service. But I think just putting out there that we really support people working, and we're not going to make you choose between working and something else is really an excellent policy. There are limited post-secondary options. So when you finish high school, there are limited places for additional learning or training that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are in the habit of using. These things exist, and some of them should be accessible to people, but there's like a confluence of low expectations, a lack of knowledge. Sometimes it's just a complicated system. And I think that it's not probably too surprising, because a lot of people, by the time they are finished high school and moving into adulthood, have applied for Social Security income, and kind of like the whole business about applying for Social Security income, and sometimes for Medicaid, is saying I can't work. So there's these different messages that people are coming out here. We have and let's see. Oh, and we have talked elsewhere, but this is a good place to talk about that. Maine does have one post-secondary college option. St. Joseph's College it's a non-degree track program for people with intellectual disabilities, the only one in the state that's a residential program, and that's attached to a four-year college. And why is that exciting? Well, that is exciting because if everything goes well, if everything goes as it should, it's only the first of the options that will be available in the state. And that the research is really clear that post-secondary programs greatly increase the likelihood that people are going to be employed, even in the absence of them coming out of it with a degree. So whether that, so that's, and many families are, and there's economic barriers to this. This costs a lot of money. Everybody can't afford it. It's not for everyone. But I think simply having these options in Maine is important, because there are just, families who might be interested but aren't interested in having their child be 300 miles away in order to do this. So, probably like the biggest long-term concern that I can think of with employment and people with developmental disabilities, things that have been on the council's mind, are the low expectations, or on the part of individuals, on the part of families, educators and schools, healthcare and service providers. Healthcare providers are really important. One of the stories that somebody who used to work here told was about taking her two children to the doctor when they were little, and one was typically developing and the other wasn't, and the doctor would say to the typically developing child, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" and that question was not asked of the child with the disability. And that stuff really sends people in a direction. We have looked at evidence-based practice, improving service provider capacity, the decreasing structural disincentives, and integrating systems. We think these things are important, and that in some cases steps have been taken. Addressing having people come to the door saying, "I want a job," is really critical. And in order to access these long-term services and supports for employment, every person needs to utilize vocational rehab. And so we're really happy that Sean has joined us today, and he's going to share with us what's going on at VR.
Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it. So good to see everybody, and thanks, John, for stopping by as well. So I wanted to just mention, Rachel, we talked a little bit about some of those disincentives to employment. And I always encourage individuals that I work with to go and see a benefits counselor, right? So Maine Health has the CWICs, it's a community work incentive coordinator, and they're the best person or the best people out there to let you know exactly how work may impact your Social Security benefit award. So just super important, people should do that. Also on the VR front, I understand data sometimes is difficult to generate specifically for someone with, what does work look like statistic-wise for, individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. So while I don't have those numbers, I can say that about a year and a half ago, we started a specific targeted caseload in each office, primarily to serve individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities. And so in the Portland VR office, that's overseen by rehab counselor Jessica Gartland, but they should have units or targeted caseloads in each of the offices across the state. So that's kind of great. One of the things we do look at, we had talked a little bit, Rachel had mentioned, just how challenging employment is in some of the rural areas. And transportation, I think as long as I've been in Maine, transportation has been like a huge barrier across the board. But I do want to just point out some information that we use from CWRI. I forget what the acronym stands for. I know it's a research institute, but they have some great resources, just sort of county by county, that I'm going to share with you if I can find a little sharing tool. And so it looks something like this. Let me know if you can see that okay. Awesome. So this here, for example, is Androscoggin County. And so it's a little bit rural, but it gives you some great information, right? Kind of annual unemployment rates across, from 91 up to about heading into 24, perhaps. Talks about private employments, gives you annual household income in Androscoggin versus the rest of Maine versus the entire nation, population growth year to year, and sort of looks population by age, so we can see like working class people, how many working class people or working aged people live in this county, and looks at some of the poverty rates information, but also provides really good information on what people are doing work-wise out here. So you can see healthcare and social assistance is pretty large. Retail probably the second greatest employer in this county. And so, it gives you just a really great snapshot of the county. So we use these quite a lot. just to gauge, what's happening in the county and what would be a viable employment goal in that county if you were to live there. And, you can sort of cross-reference him with other counties and just kind of see what you get. So that's always neat. For VR, I always encourage people to visit our website, right? And just to familiarize themselves with who we are and what we do. And so I'm just going to show you how to get there. Easiest way is just to Google Maine Voc Rehab, and the top link should pop up as MDOL, Rehab, Vocational Rehabilitation Services. And so in Maine, Voc Rehab falls under Department of Labor. Some other states, we fall under Department of Education. But clicking on our website gives you a whole lot of info just about who we are, right? What is VR, who's eligible for VR services. And one of the most important things, the virtual orientation. So every third Thursday of the month from 9 to 10, we have an orientation. You don't need to register. You can just show up. We have closed captioning and ASL always available. There's a link right here on the website, DVR orientation. You can click on it, use the password, meeting ID information, and go to or attend the orientation. Many times case managers or guardians stop by, but we often have VR participants stop by as well to learn more about what we offer. So I think it's super important. People have a lot of questions, and it's a great starting point just to get familiar with who we are and what we do. On the same website, you can apply for our services right here. The very top link here, how do I apply? Is an online application which goes directly to our intake unit, who will work with you on the eligibility determination. It talks more about goals and services, and we'll get into that in a little bit. It talks about cost, but it also has our rules, the rules that govern our program. And then we have it in a much more accessible format in our consumer handbook, which really just takes the rules and puts them in a nice, easy to read, easy to understand manner, which a lot of people enjoy. So I always say to folks, stop by, go to orientation, download the handbook, and just familiarize yourself a little bit with what we do, and I'm happy to help out. I'll share with you just a little bit about us. All right, so VR, the path for meaningful employment. Like Rachel mentioned earlier, we are an employment first state. We no longer do sheltered workshops, and we want folks, who are interested in working and, who can work to earn at least minimum wage or higher, and, doing something meaningful that they enjoy, that they feel good about, that meets their skills and their values and their interests and all of that good stuff. We fall under Department of Labor, along with other divisions as well. So we have the department, and we have the Bureau of Rehab Services, and inside the Bureau of Rehab Services is Voc Rehab, the division for the deaf, hard of hearing, and late deafened, the division for the blind and visually impaired, systems improvements, and Maine workforce system. These are the career centers. We're often co-located throughout the state. If you find a career center, there's usually a VR attached, and that's probably one of the easiest ways to find us. So we are a federal and state-funded agency. We assist individuals with disabilities to prepare for, find, keep, and advance in competitive and integrated employment. And we serve individuals from as young as 14 years old through adulthood. Eligibility requirements. To be eligible for VR, somebody has to have a disability that results in an impediment to employment, right? So it has to create a bit of a barrier to employment, and you'd find yourself most likely eligible for our services. And the second part of that is you require VR services to prepare for, secure, retain, regain, or advance in employment. Again, here's some links to apply, but it's probably easiest just to pull that straight off our website. Anybody who has Social Security benefits, if you've been awarded Social Security, either SSI or SSDI, we're going to presume you eligible right at the very beginning of the process. And just because the bar for being awarded Social Security is much higher than VR's bar. So if you are found eligible for that, you're automatically eligible for our services. We're still going to need some documentation just to justify, for when we're audited, that we did our due diligence and we got all the med records and stuff like that. But for anyone who has SSI, SSDI, definitely eligible for VR. We no longer have a wait list. There was a time when we were waitlisting categories 3 and 4 and only serving categories 1 and 2. And the categories used in an order of selection was an OOS number, and with a category of folks who had the most significant needs, and individuals whose needs were maybe lesser, and those individuals who did not have as significant barriers to employment were on the wait list. But we've opened those up now. There's no wait list at present. And this just talks a little bit about WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is to help us increase collaboration with WIOA partners and provide services in community-based settings. It also requires us to use 15% of our funding for pre-employment transition services for students in high school. And as Rachel mentioned earlier, there has been a large emphasis on serving students in high school. And currently, every high school is served by a vocational rehabilitation counselor. And so in the counties that we work with down here, York and Cumberland County, the VR counselors probably each cover about 10 schools. So this talks a little bit about pre-ETS. This is for students. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, just because we want to cover mainly employment. But if folks are interested in pre-ETS, or if you are a student, definitely reach out to either your guidance department or your school counselor and ask who your VR counselor is for your school, because we can connect you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. What is a PREET?
PREET is pre-employment transition services. Yeah, so we sure love our PE acronyms. We have progressive employment, PREETs, post-employment, but the PE comes up a lot. So yeah, it's kind of funny. All right, and just another note, this number on the screen, we have a counselor of the day every day in every office. And if you're unable to get in touch with your assigned counselor, definitely call VR, ask for the counselor of the day, and they should be able to help you out. And so just some process information here. Anytime you apply for VR services, we have to make an eligibility determination within 60 days, right? So you have to know that you're eligible for our services or you weren't found eligible. If you are found eligible for VR services, we have another 90 days to develop a plan for employment with you. And generally, it doesn't take that long. If we have good documentation, we can find someone eligible really quickly, and we can work on a plan much earlier than within 90 days. The plan, we always try to factor in somebody's interests, their skills, their abilities, what's happening in the labor market, as well as barriers and accommodations that may be needed. And in order to do this, we call it the CARNS. It's a comprehensive assessment of rehabilitation needs. And that generally starts right at the beginning at intake, where we'll start working on that. And we'll update that from time to time as we work through the VR process. And that's almost like a psychosocial. If anybody's familiar with psychosocial or writing a psychosocial, we're looking at, environmental concerns, community supports, barriers, work restrictions, strengths, skills, abilities, and all of that great stuff. So very similar. This is just a little bit more about the IPE. So this is what people often are interested in. Like, what can VR actually do for me? Do a variety of things. We have some really great services, and so some of them are here. Vocational guidance and counseling, really just a fancy way of saying that the VR counselor can help you navigate the process and help connect you with services and give you some guidance around career goal, career exploration. We have many career exploration tools, and we've really adapted to keep up with the times. One of our latest tools that we've just got are virtual reality goggles that are specifically designed for career exploration. And so you can take a job that you normally wouldn't have an opportunity to experience, and you can see what it's like. I know someone who did the overhead power line kind of maintenance one, and it'll definitely let you know if you're scared of heights that it's not for you, because it feels real. Somebody did a veterinarian surgery type experience, which is like you're in the surgery, like working on an animal. And so I think they have like 30 different careers associated or something so far. And so it is really neat. Our office just got 2 of them, and we're going to tie it into our career exploration workshop. And so just a great opportunity for folks to get like a real 3D, perhaps, a realistic view of what a job might be. Our career exploration workshop, it does a lot of assessments. It confirms a lot of things people already know, but it also brings up a lot of great other information. I encourage everybody to do it. We do some work-based learning where we can actually pay folks to try out a job. And sometimes that's the best way, right? Especially with students in high school who don't have a whole lot of experience, not sure exactly what they want to do. Let's try some things out and see if something resonates with you. So we're able to do stuff like that. We have a progressive employment model, another PE, that's based around that. It has a lot of job shadows and informational interviews and job tours and work-based learning. So students are able to try out a multitude of things, and adults too. Those services are also open for adults. We do job development and placements, but not in the way that a lot of people think. It's not unusual for new participants to come to VR and just ask, well, where are you going to place me? Like we have a list of jobs, and we're just going to put you in one of them. That's not really our process. We really want to know like where your interests are, and try to find something that's a good fit, and not just put you anywhere, that I'm not sure that would be real successful. We also help with self-employment. And so there's been a large self-employment push, both with us and with the Office of Aging and Disabilities over the last few years. And so I believe they're using the Rhode Island model, and it looks really good. We've had, I think, the first cohort in Odes go through the self-employment pilot program, and it's very exciting. They're working with new ventures, and it's a cohort style where they attend classes and kind of work as a group. And by the time they're finished with that, they should come out with their business plan fully developed and everything. So real exciting stuff.
Yeah, we've been um, working with them just on dispersing the funds, and it's been fun to see what people are coming up with. You know, somebody wanted to have a painting business. There's cat sitting, there's dog sitting. Cool stuff.
Oh yeah, it's really good. And so I'm hoping we see more of that coming up in the future. Um, Just a little bit more about VR services and funding. So we can only fund services if they're authorized in advance and itemized on the current plan for employment. And so it's always got to be in the plan, and it has to be authorized in advance. We do from time to time have folks ask us to reimburse for something that they went and purchased, that it wasn't discussed in advance. There was no agreement to fund it, and it's not in the IPE. We just can't do that. So we have to be good stewards of taxpayer funds. And VR, of course, is always, we have to look at comparable benefits, and we have to be the most affordable option. Clients may be asked to share in the cost of services, and services must be provided, as cost effectively as possible. And client expectations. So anyone working with VR, the participants we work with, they really need to be active in the VR process and take ownership of decisions through informed choice and follow through with plans. Super important, right? We do sometimes have parents and case managers who want to take the lead on employment, but it really is an individualistic kind of process, and we like the participant to be driving the bus because this is their life and this is important. So that's one of the things that's important to us. VR participants should share their strengths and barriers with their VR counselor, identify supports that will help overcome those barriers, and be open to different vocations and advocate for themselves. So we do a lot of self-advocacy work, and I think it's very good. It's very helpful. Our responsibilities are to encourage and develop an ongoing relationship with the individuals we serve, to encourage exploration of vocational options and opportunities, to provide guidance and counseling to support clients making informed choices, to encourage clients to take risks, to assist with understanding how employment will impact current benefits, and to provide community and WeAware resources, including CAP services. CAP is our consumer advocacy program. For us, that's disability rights. And so if somebody feels that they've been denied services, or the VR hasn't treated them well, or has maybe violated their rights in any manner, they can reach out to our CAP. And so they can reach out to disability rights, who can hold our feet to the fire. Supporting client success. We always need signed releases, and those have to be updated annually, of course. And, I think a team approach is always the best approach. So if we could get releases for family members, case managers, friends, school, employers, whoever's part of the team, it really helps us to, work effectively together with others. Effective communication. VR and case managers maintaining communication to support client success, but this should not replace direct communication with the clients we work with. And we try to always have client-centered philosophy, where the individuals we serve are supported by a team to achieve their goals, and the team believes that the client can work and raises aspirations for what meaningful employment may look like. This changed largely in 2014. We believe everybody can do something. And so, everybody's able to work. We no longer would consider certain people like not work ready or not able to work. And we've had a lot of success. I worked with a young man a few years back, and he needed something that was sort of limited in the number of tasks and repetitive, and ended up folding pizza boxes at a Domino's and loved it. And wasn't very long before he didn't need a job coach to independently do the job that he was assigned. And, it was just a very successful story, because he found something that he enjoyed, and it fit in with what he could do. And it was rewarding. It was a rewarding experience for him. And so we work with community rehabilitation providers. So for Region 1, I think 2 and 3, most of us use Goodwill as our CRP, and they provide job coaching services, job placement services, and things of that nature under a contract with us. I think Living Innovations has Regions 4 and 5, yeah. But most of the rest of the states is we work with with Goodwill, sorry. A little bit more about just liaisons. These are folks kind of associated with ODES and targeted case manager, targeted caseload, should I say. So we have Jess Cartland in our office, Amber Cooper's in the Augusta office, Rebecca Spencer in Bangor, and Skylar Gaudet's in the Lewiston office. And so those 4 offices right now have a targeted caseload for folks with intellectual or developmental disabilities. And we have some case studies of what success looks like. And I can run through a couple of those. But Julie was a young woman with a diagnosis of anxiety, autism, and a learning disability. She came to VR after trying unsuccessfully to find employment on her own for almost 10 years. Despite the challenges of COVID-19, her VR counselor and her community rehabilitation provider worked with Julie and her family using the progressive employment model to help uncover her employment interests. Julie was able to do a work experience with a large pharmacy chain. She was so successful in the work experience that she was hired on. That doesn't happen every time, but it does happen from time to time, which is kind of neat. Julie's mom recently shared that her daughter is extremely happy with her job, and she can see Julie's confidence building every day. Julie now has her own bank account and is learning to manage her money. PJ experienced a setback in their personal life. They were concerned that their job with a Maine-based specialty food company might be in jeopardy, but VR was able to step in and help PJ with some short-term job coaching and worked with the employer to develop natural supports that allowed PJ to remain a valued employee. Johnny, a longtime client of Voc Rehab, is deaf and communicates using American Sign Language. He also experiences barriers related to his mental health, and those barriers impacted his ability to find a job. An assessment with VR revealed that Johnny had a real aptitude for hands-on work. Working with the community rehab provider, his rehabilitation counselor for the deaf helped him to find a job at a large building supply store. After reaching employment stability, he now has access to long-term job coaching through MaineCare waiver funds. The reports from his managers and his team have been positive. Everyone enjoys working with him and enjoys his sense of humor. He was recognized with awards and appreciation for his work with customers. Johnny told his RCD that he loves his job and everyone at the store, and he is proud of himself and his job. So usually we go over to questions here, but I'm going to stop the share. And we could maybe have a discussion around any questions that anyone may have. But that's our program in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Oh,
That's
sure.
really like I knew that the some of the technology stuff was moving forward, but the VR or the VR glasses are sound pretty entertaining.
Yeah, we've done a few other things as well. We have our region just started boot camps. We're a little behind the other regions. So this was our first year with boot camp for students, which is, I think, a 20-week kind of curriculum that covers soft skills and career exploration and just a whole lot of stuff that's baked in that sort of culminates with the summer work experience. And so we're doing that. And we've got these discovery kits, which were pretty pricey, but they also cover like a specific career, and it's more geared for folks who need some hands-on learning. And so, for example, the restaurant one, it talks a lot about sort of what would be like to work in a restaurant industry. And so students like kind of plan menus, they learn how to do place settings, and they host like a luncheon with the items on the menu, whether it's Skittles and, PB&J sandwiches or whatever, for their peers. And so they get to try it like hands-on, taking orders, delivering the food, putting it all together. So it's kind of nice. So we have a lot of those, from detailing cars to retail to some other things. And those are kits we often use in functional skill classrooms. And yeah, so new things keep coming out, and we're trying to embrace them and help folks to explore careers more effectively.
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, people often don't get those messages, like
Yeah.
when, in a routine kind of way. What do you think, John?
I like the concept, but and everything, but here's a story that will work into this, Sean. I know somebody that has a disability and works with the summer concerts here in Bangor, and that's what he does for his job, and he loves it.
It's awesome. Yeah, we have a lot more flexibility now as well. There was a time when we couldn't really consider we couldn't close somebody successfully if they were in seasonal employment. So now, I'm not sure if this individual only works summer, but if they did in the past, we probably couldn't close them successfully unless the employer agreed to rehire them in the future, like next season. And nobody wants to put that in writing, but we have more flexibility around that now, and that some of these seasonal jobs may lead to other jobs. And some companies actually require temporary or seasonal type work before they hire someone on full time. So some of the bigger labs and stuff like that, you almost have to come in that way.
Yeah,
And so, yeah,
he's been doing that job for almost 2 years now.
that's good. Yeah. And you said it was around music, right?
Yep,
Yeah. Is that where they do the concerts, like in Bangor, up that way?
yep,
Yeah. Nice. I've been to a couple of shows
yep.
up there. So very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to Willie Nelson on
Oh,
Friday.
yeah. There we go. Yeah.
It's the Outlaw Festival. Yep, you're gonna see.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monique's gonna be there. She's leaving from where in New Hampshire in Durham, New Hampshire, and then she's coming all the way back up to Bangor, and her and her husband are going to be there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm
Small
sure
world.
we'll never see each other, but that's awesome.
I can hear him from my house. It's like I don't need to pay for tickets.
There. Great. Well, what if we stopped recording, Brenda? Because I want to ask